The first Friday of January 2026 does not arrive gently in Los Angeles. It carries with it the brittle tension of unresolved wars, the kind that fester beneath designer fabrics and polished smiles, waiting for the slightest provocation to erupt. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, power is never simply inherited or earned, it is taken, defended, and avenged. On this particular day, every character stands at a fault line of consequence, where old wounds reopen and new ambitions sharpen into weapons. At the center of this storm are two parallel narratives, each reflecting a different kind of desperation: the quiet, unsettling unraveling of Dylan's fragile stability, and the explosive family war ignited between Brooke Logan Forrester and Katie Logan Spencer over the soul of the Logan legacy. Dylan's story begins not with glamour or triumph, but with survival. Her life, until recently, has been defined by movement without destination, by nights spent in a car that doubles as shelter and prison, by the constant vigilance required of someone who knows that safety is always temporary. Homelessness has taught her how to disappear in plain sight, how to observe without being seen, how to read people's emotional whether the way others read stock reports. When Will Spencer first recognizes the truth of her situation, it is not through a confession, but through an object. Her car, packed not with weekend clutter, but with necessity, the unmistakable signature of someone living between margins. His response is instinctive rather than calculated, driven by empathy rather than caution, and that instinct changes everything. Will's invitation into his shared life with Electra Forrester is meant to be a kindness, an act of moral clarity in a world that often rewards indifference. Offering Dylan a temporary place to stay, even relegated to the garage, feels like a manageable compromise: help without disruption, compassion without consequence. Yet, in the emotional ecosystem of the bold and the beautiful, nothing remains contained for long. Dylan's presence, once introduced, begins to alter the balance in subtle but unmistakable ways. For someone who has lived unseen, proximity itself becomes intoxicating. The warmth of routine, the illusion of belonging, and the simple act of being noticed awakens something in Dylan that is far more dangerous than hunger: attachment. As Dylan settles into this borrowed stability, her gaze lingers longer than it should. Her attention shifts from gratitude to fixation, from appreciation to longing. Will, in her eyes, is no longer just a rescuer or benefactor. He becomes a symbol of everything she has lacked: security, affection, and the promise of being chosen. This emotional transference is not malicious in its origin, but it is undeniably destabilizing. Dylan begins to watch moments that are not meant for her, to catalog gestures between Will and Electra that speak of intimacy and trust. What begins as curiosity gradually hardens into obsession, and obsession, left unchecked, always seeks justification. Electra, though perceptive, is not immediately aware of the shift. She senses discomfort before she recognizes threat, a subtle wrongness in the air that cannot yet be named. Dylan's presence challenges her sense of territorial safety, not through confrontation, but through silence. The danger lies not in overt rivalry, but in the unspoken imbalance: one woman secure in love, the other starving for it. In this dynamic, kindness becomes vulnerability and generosity becomes exposure. Dylan's emotional trajectory raises an unsettling question: when survival instincts collide with desire, which one prevails? While this quiet tension brews in the shadows of Will and Electra's home, a far more public and destructive conflict rages elsewhere, one rooted in legacy, pride, and the unbearable weight of sibling expectation. Katie Logan Spencer has achieved what once seemed impossible. With Liam Spencer's strategic support, she has legally secured ownership of the Logan fashion brand, reclaiming a name that has defined her family's creative and commercial identity for generations. On paper, it is a victory of empowerment, a declaration of independence from a lifetime spent in Brooke's formidable shadow. Yet victory, in this case, tastes bitter. Katie does not celebrate with unrestrained joy because the triumph she desired was never solely about control or success. What she has always wanted, was acknowledgement. Katie's emotional compass has long pointed toward Brooke, her older sister, whose approval has served as both aspiration and burden. Every achievement in Katie's life has been quietly measured against Brooke's opinion, every step forward accompanied by the silent question of whether it would finally earn validation. Securing the Logan brand was meant to be the culmination of that journey, proof that Katie could stand as an equal rather than an afterthought. Instead, it becomes the spark that ignites years of buried resentment, unspoken grievances, and unresolved power struggles. Brooke's reaction is not merely disappointment, it is fury disguised as righteousness. To her, Katie's acquisition of the Logan brand feels less like progress and more like betrayal. Brooke interprets the move not as an assertion of independence, but as an act of theft, a challenge to the hierarchy that has long governed their relationship. The past resurfaces with brutal clarity. Old sacrifices Brooke believes she made for the family, old wounds she believes only she endured. Old narratives in which she cast herself as protector and architect of the Logan legacy. Katie's success threatens that narrative, and Brooke is not prepared to relinquish it. What follows is not a simple disagreement, but a fundamental rupture. Sisterhood, once the bedrock of shared identity, fractures under the weight of competing truths. Katie is forced to confront a devastating realization. Her greatest accomplishment has cost her the one relationship she hoped it would heal. Brooke, meanwhile, convinces herself that her anger is justified, that reclaiming the brand is not an act of vengeance, but of preservation. In this self-authored version of events, Brooke is not punishing Katie, she is saving the family from fragmentation, even if that salvation requires destruction. Ridge Forrester stands beside Brooke, not as a moderating force, but as an accelerant. Together, they form a united front, their shared determination fueled by a belief that power, once lost, must be reclaimed at any cost. Though legal avenues are closed to them, their resolve only intensifies. In the world they inhabit, legality is merely one battlefield among many. Strategy replaces restraint, and principle gives way to ambition. Their alliance with Carter Walton becomes the next move in a carefully calculated campaign. Carter, for his part, is driven less by loyalty than by self-preservation. The failure to renew the Logan trademark a year earlier hangs over him like an unspoken indictment, a professional oversight with catastrophic consequences. Rather than confront his own culpability, Carter redirects blame toward Bill Spencer, deflecting responsibility in an attempt to maintain his standing. This refusal to accept fault reveals a deeper flaw, Carter's belief that perception matters more than truth, that survival within the Forrester orbit requires adaptability rather than integrity. By aligning with Brooke and Ridge in their effort to undermine Katie's new company, Carter crosses an ethical line that cannot be easily erased. Sabotage becomes a means of absolution, a way to rewrite history by ensuring that Katie's victory collapses under pressure. Yet, this strategy exposes a profound irony. In attempting to weaken Katie's position, Brooke and Ridge inadvertently reveal their own insecurity not in their competitors, but in themselves. If Forrester Creations were truly unassailable, there would be no need for covert operations. Their willingness to engage in underhanded tactics suggests a fear that runs deeper than pride, the fear of irrelevance. Katie, meanwhile, faces a reckoning of her own. The responsibility of leading a major fashion brand weighs heavily, not only because of external threats, but because of internal doubt. She is no stranger to adversity, but this battle is different. It is not fought against faceless rivals, but against blood, memory, and emotional history. Every obstacle she encounters is tinged with the knowledge that it originates from those she once trusted most. The pressure threatens to overwhelm her, forcing her to question whether independence is worth the isolation it brings. As these conflicts converge, the central question of the episode looms large. Can reconciliation exist where ambition has drawn blood? Is there a future in which Brooke and Katie can redefine their relationship outside the constraints of legacy and control, or has the pursuit of power rendered such healing impossible? And in the quieter corners of this narrative, Dylan's growing instability raises its own set of concerns. What happens when emotional dependency masquerades as gratitude, when the line between need and desire dissolves? The bold and the beautiful has always thrived on these intersections between love and obsession, success and sacrifice, family and rivalry. This episode does not offer resolution so much as escalation. Every choice made on this day sets the stage for consequences that will ripple far beyond a single week. Dylan's fixation threatens to disrupt a fragile domestic harmony. Brooke's crusade risks turning a family dispute into a corporate war. Carter's deflection exposes the moral compromises that lurk beneath polished professionalism. And Katie, standing alone at the center of it all, must decide whether resilience is enough to withstand betrayal from every direction. In the end, no one emerges untouched. Victory carries loss. Kindness invites danger. Loyalty bends under pressure. The lines between right and wrong blur until only intention remains, and intention, in this world, is rarely pure. As January unfolds, the question is no longer who will win, but how much will be destroyed in the process. The fashion war does not announce itself with a single dramatic gesture or a clearly drawn battle line. Instead, it creeps into every conversation, every boardroom decision, every strained smile exchanged across familiar hallways. In the bold and the beautiful, this new conflict grows out of something far more intimate than business ambition. It is born from loyalty divided, from marriages tested by power, and from the quiet terror of realizing that love and career may no longer coexist without sacrifice. As the week unfolds on CBS, the world of high fashion becomes a battlefield where every character is forced to choose a side, even when neutrality once seemed possible, even when choosing feels like betrayal of self. Hope Logan enters this moment already carrying the weight of past illusions. For years, she believed perhaps needed to believe that she could build a meaningful career at Forrester Creations while sustaining a stable, loving marriage with Liam Spencer. That belief was not naive so much as deeply human. Hope has always been driven by the idea that integrity and harmony could triumph over ego and ambition, that love might soften the sharp edges of power. Yet the present reality exposes how fragile that belief truly is. The fashion war strips away the comfort of compromise and demands clarity. It insists that every character reveal what they value more when forced to choose. At the center of the escalating conflict stands Liam Spencer, whose role has shifted decisively from passive supporter to active strategist. Liam is no longer content to observe the fashion industry from the periphery. He is now deeply embedded in the creation of Katie Logan and Bill Spencer's new fashion enterprise. His involvement is not symbolic or temporary. He throws himself into the work with a sense of purpose that borders on obsession, driven by the conviction that this new company represents not just a business opportunity, but a moral correction. To Liam, supporting Katie's venture feels like standing on the right side of history, a chance to challenge the dominance of Forrester Creations and reclaim the Logan name on different terms. Leaks surrounding the week's episodes suggest that Liam's commitment goes even further. He is prepared to compete directly with Carter to secure the Logan trademark, a move that positions him as a critical architect of the new brand's identity. This is not merely a legal maneuver, it is a declaration of allegiance. By fighting for the Logan name, Liam symbolically aligns himself with Katie and Bill's vision, placing his own marriage in a precarious position. He becomes indispensable to the new company, but in doing so, he also becomes an undeniable rival to his wife, who remains tied professionally and emotionally to Forrester Creations. This is where the war truly begins, long before any company name is officially announced or any collection unveiled. Ridge Forrester and Brooke Logan do not wait for the new fashion house to find its footing. They respond with immediate hostility, interpreting the very existence of Katie's venture as an act of aggression. The animosity between Beatty and Bridge is no longer subtle or contained. It spills into every interaction, every strategic conversation, transforming what might have been a competitive business environment into a deeply personal feud. The Logan family, once united by shared history and creative legacy, fractures along ideological lines that feel increasingly irreparable. In this charged atmosphere, Hope Logan's belief in neutrality begins to look less like wisdom and more like denial. She may want to remain above the conflict, to separate her professional identity from the growing rift between the women of her family. But the reality of the fashion war makes such detachment impossible. Every design choice, every public affiliation, every silence is interpreted as a statement. Hope's position at Forrester Creations, once a symbol of her independence and growth, now marks her as aligned with one side of the war, whether she intends it or not. The illusion of neutrality becomes even more fragile as rumors surface that Liam may issue an ultimatum. According to the leaks, he could pressure Hope to leave Forrester Creations and join the new family fashion house led by Katie. Framed as an appeal to unity and loyalty, the ultimatum would carry an unmistakable undercurrent of control. Liam's desire to work alongside Hope may stem from love, but it is also rooted in his belief that marriages function best when partners move in the same direction, professionally as well as emotionally. To him, Hope's continued presence at Forrester Creations represents a conflict of interest, a risk to both their relationship and the success of the new brand. This is not the first time Liam has attempted to dictate the boundaries of Hope's career. The past lingers heavily over the present, casting long shadows over every choice they now face. One of the defining fractures in the history of their relationship occurred when Hope felt that Liam neither supported nor respected her professional ambitions. His ultimatums, however well-intentioned, communicated a lack of faith in her ability to make independent decisions. They suggested that her career was negotiable, secondary to the needs of the marriage. That wound never fully healed. It became one of the reasons Lope ultimately fell apart, eroded by resentment and unspoken disappointment. Now, history threatens to repeat itself, but with far greater stakes. Hope is no longer the same woman she was during those earlier conflicts. She has fought hard to establish herself as a serious creative force to build hope for the future into something that reflects her values and vision. That line is not just a job or a brand, it is an extension of her identity, the manifestation of years of struggle, belief, and persistence. The idea of walking away from Forrester Creations is not simply about changing employers. It raises profound questions about autonomy, legacy, and self-worth. On the surface, Hope could leave at any time. She is not bound by emotional obligation to the Forrester family in the way others are. Yet the situation is far more complex than it appears. Contracts, intellectual property rights, and legal constraints may prevent her from taking Hope for the future with her if she chooses to exit. The line she built could be left behind, absorbed or dismantled by the very institution she helped strengthen. This possibility transforms her decision into a painful dilemma: stay and protect her creation, or leave and preserve her marriage. The emotional weight of that choice cannot be overstated. Hope for the future is often described as Hope's child, not in a sentimental sense, but in recognition of the devotion and sacrifice required to bring it into existence. Abandoning it would feel like relinquishing a piece of herself, a concession that her dreams are less important than her husband's expectations. Yet staying at Forrester Creations carries its own cost. It risks deepening the divide between her and Liam, reinforcing his belief that she prioritizes her career over their relationship. Complicating matters further is the presence of Thomas Forrester, Hope's former love and a lingering emotional variable in her life. Remaining at Forrester Creations inevitably ties Hope to Thomas's orbit, a fact that fuels insecurity and suspicion. Even if her feelings for Thomas are firmly in the past, the optics of their continued professional proximity are impossible to ignore. Liam's discomfort with Thomas has always been a fault line in their marriage, and the fashion war threatens to widen that crack into a chasm. As Hope weighs her options, she is forced to confront a question she has long avoided. How much of herself is she willing to give up for the sake of love? Is compromise a sign of maturity, or does it mark the beginning of self-erasure? These questions haunt her as she navigates meetings, fittings, and strategy sessions, each moment underscored by the knowledge that her presence is being interpreted, judged, and politicized. Meanwhile, the broader fashion war intensifies, drawing in allies and adversaries alike. Liam's rivalry with Carter over the Logan trademark symbolizes the larger struggle between competing visions of legacy. The new company, still unnamed, represents disruption and defiance, a challenge to the established order of Forrester Creations. Ridge and Brooks' aggressive response reveals their fear of losing control, not just over a brand, but over a narrative they have long dominated. For them, this war is about preserving authority and identity in a world that is shifting beneath their feet. Hope finds herself caught between these titans, her personal conflict mirroring the larger battle unfolding around her. Every choice she makes reverberates beyond her own life, influencing alliances, strategies, and the future of entire fashion empires. The war demands clarity, but clarity comes at a cost. There is no option that leaves everything intact, no path that avoids loss. As the week progresses, the central question grows increasingly urgent. Will Hope Logan leave Forrester Creations and align herself fully with Liam and the new Logan-led fashion house, risking the loss of her greatest professional achievement? Or will she remain where she is, defending hope for the future and accepting the possibility that her marriage may not survive the strain? The fashion war has transformed love into leverage and loyalty into currency. In this world, choosing oneself can look like betrayal, and choosing love can feel like surrender. The tragedy of the situation lies in its inevitability. The war was never truly about fabric or trademarks or market share. It was always about control, about whose vision of the future would prevail, and about whether individuals could exist outside the gravitational pull of powerful families and institutions. Hope's struggle embodies that tension more clearly than anyone else's. Her decision will not only define her own future, but will also signal what kind of world this fashion empire is becoming, one where ambition devours intimacy, or one where selfhood can survive even the fiercest battles. In the end, the fashion war leaves no one untouched. It exposes vulnerabilities, resurrects old wounds, and forces every character to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. As sides are chosen and lines are crossed, the question is no longer who will win the war, but what will remain when it is over. For Hope Logan, the answer may come at the price of everything she thought she could have: love without sacrifice, success without conflict, and a future where choosing one does not mean losing.